Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here today. It's been an awesome weekend getting to know a lot of you and seeing how you guys all inspire students in your schools to get excited about science, technology, engineering, and math. But I want to start telling you today that I was not a smart kid in high school. I did well in school, I got A's and B's, but there were definitely a group of smart kids, and I was not one of them. And I think one of the reasons why this was because I grew up in a college town. And so the smart kids at my high school were the ones who had parents who were professors of science and engineering at our local university. You probably know these kids as the ones you don't need to worry about. They're the ones who have tutors for their SATs and their parents help them with all of their college applications. They apply to all the top schools and they get into them. I was not one of these kids. But in spite of that, I ended up majoring in mechanical and aerospace engineering in undergrad, ended up getting a full ride to MIT for Aeronautics and Astronautics, and now I have my own TV show about outer space. So today I want to tell you about how a girl who did not consider herself one of the smart kids reluctantly and timidly joined STEM, but then enthusiastically stayed. First, I want to bring you back to your middle school or high school self. When you thought of STEM careers, what types of words came to your mind? And when you thought of a person who was a scientist or an engineer, what did they look like? For me, the words that came to my mind were hard, boring, no life, all-nighters, antisocial. But good money, though, so that's something. And when I pictured what a scientist or an engineer looked like, I certainly didn't think of a female. I thought a lot about our characters on The Big Bang Theory. Fun and entertaining to watch on TV, but you may not want to be them in real life, especially not if you're a high school student. And when I asked my teachers what an engineer did, they always told me that engineers can design everything from a car to a mechanical pencil. And I wasn't really a car person, and I didn't feel like mechanical pencils were my calling in life. And I knew they designed more things than that, but just the design of these types of things, that didn't excite me. That's not why I went into engineering. Honestly, I went into engineering because I wanted to impress my parents. I wanted to make my parents proud. And more specifically, I wanted to make my dad proud. My dad, when he was growing up, he grew up in a single-parent family. He was raised by a single mother, and he was the youngest of 4 kids. And he worked really, really hard since he was young because his family lived in poverty. They did not have any money. And so he worked really hard since he was young, and at the age of 18, he was able to buy his mother and their family their very first car that they had ever owned. So that kind of tells you, how hard someone like that can work. And so when it came time to it for me to decide what my career should be, I felt an obligation to do the same. And I was told that careers in STEM, they made good money. So while I didn't feel like I fit the part, I wasn't the right gender, I like socializing with people, and I didn't have a fun catchphrase like bazinga, I joined engineering anyways. I thought it is going to be a long 4 years. My best friend's going to be my calculator, and my favorite date spot is going to be the library. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. I am so happy to come here before you guys today and tell you how pleasantly surprised how wrong that idea of my college experience was. My college experience was fun and adventurous, and not just fun and adventurous, but I know I'm biased, but I would say more fun and more adventurous than my friends who were in non-STEM majors. And today, I want to give you 3 reasons why that was. 3 reasons why STEM is more than just a body of knowledge. It's more than the design of a car or a mechanical pencil. You can be best friends with your calculator. I know that I kind of was. But you can have other friends too. And not only that, you can travel the world and do really amazing things and meet really interesting people, and someone else will pay for it if you're in STEM. I want to tell you my 3 favorite aspects of STEM so that you can bring these ideas back, these messages back to your students, so that they don't just reluctantly join STEM as I did, but enthusiastically join STEM, excited for college and for their future. My 3 reasons why STEM is awesome. 1, STEM makes you uncomfortable. This seems sort of counterintuitive, but I'll explain. STEM gives you superpowers, and STEM is a free ticket to travel and adventure. Now, first and foremost, STEM is a field that can and should make your students feel uncomfortable. When your students think of careers in science and engineering and technology, they are going to feel uneasy and intimidated, really no matter what you do. But you need to emphasize that this is a good thing, that this is a natural thing, because the best accomplishments in life start with a little discomfort. Now, this idea was never more clear for me than when I went to MIT for graduate school. When I got there, I was surrounded by these Ivy League kids who came from families that had bred engineers for generations. These kids knew that they wanted to get a PhD from MIT since they were 5 years old. And then when I went to the official MIT orientation with all these kids, I expected to hear things like, welcome to MIT, this is where you launch your career, welcome all you little geniuses. But instead, what they told us was basically to prepare to hate our lives there. They told us that it's natural to feel like you don't belong, like you're not smart enough, like we made a mistake letting you in. And at this point, I'm thinking, well, I did feel like I was smart enough to be here, but now that you're saying that these Ivy League kids next to me don't feel like they're smart enough, I am questioning all kinds of things. So it wasn't really the warm embrace that I was hoping for. And then when I made my way to my specific research group, I discovered that there were only 2 new students accepted into my lab. Myself and one other guy who had just came off from a summer from working with the one and only Buzz Aldrin. This guy literally worked with, knew personally, and every once in a while in lab he'd receive a call from and he would chat with the second man on the moon. So here I was, surrounded by these Ivy League kids, Buzz Aldrin's best friend apparently, and the school itself was telling me I was going to hate my life. I was definitely uncomfortable. That was until I got to know those Ivy League engineering-bred friends. And what I discovered was that they were feeling the exact same way I was. They didn't feel smart enough to be there. They were intimidated by me, by each other. They were definitely very, very uncomfortable. And it's because when we decide to do these new and difficult things, it's natural to feel scared. And your students, they should take comfort in knowing that everybody feels this way too, no matter what school you went to or what family you're from. We all at times suffer from something called imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome is this psychological phenomenon where you internalize your achievements, that despite external evidence of your success, you think that you're a fraud, hence imposter syndrome, and that you don't deserve the success that you've achieved. This is especially a problem for your female students. And sometimes this I'm not good enough fear is so great that we trap ourselves in our comfort zone. And this is one big reason why a lot of students don't even consider going into STEM. Fear is a great excuse to be a very boring person. Fear is a great excuse to sit in bed all day and watch Netflix and never really do anything. So we need to give students confidence to do the hard things. Because while I was scared to go to MIT, the way that I got over that fear, or over it enough that I was able to graduate, was by doing something that I do every time I take on a new uncomfortable challenge. And it's by surrounding myself with really incredible people who are going through the same thing. There's a really helpful mantra here that I think would be useful for your students, and it's that you are the average of your 5 closest friends, so choose wisely. Are you choosing wisely? Surrounding yourself with smart and motivated and positive people is the single best way to make it through these new and difficult, uncomfortable experiences. They will make the terrible days more bearable and the great days even better. And they'll help you get to the finish line. Because while I was at MIT, there were so many times where I wanted to stop short of that finish line, where I wanted to throw in the towel and say, yep, I was right, I'm not one of the smart kids, I don't belong here. But it was my friends who kept me going. We always hear this idea of peer pressure as a negative thing. We think that it has this negative connotation. But peer pressure can be one of the most positive influences in a student's life. By surrounding myself with amazing and driven friends to this day, I am constantly peer pressured to do things that are good for me. My friends are always making me eat healthy and go to the gym and write a new blog and work on my TV show, sometimes when I don't necessarily have the energy to. So if you know students or teachers who have common interests, be a matchmaker. Because these students, these teachers, they will have a better chance of creating something amazing together than they will individually. But above all students should know that this feeling of discomfort, this I'm not good enough feeling, is a natural feeling that everybody feels from time to time, no matter what age you are, what career you're in, or what school you went to. And STEM has plenty of situations where they will feel uncomfortable. But they should know that this is a good thing, that this is a great thing, because these are the situations where they are guaranteed to learn something. They are guaranteed to come out more confident, more experienced, and more independent than when they went in. So tell your students that STEM will make them uncomfortable, but that this, in fact, is a good thing. Now, the next reason why STEM is awesome is because it gives your students superpowers. What do I mean by this? Well, I think Carl Sagan put it best when he said, science is much more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking. STEM will give your students superpowers, and it'll transform the way that they think about the world. You can understand the secret language of nature, and it becomes easier for you to understand why the sky is blue, how a literally 1 million pound aircraft can fly effortlessly through the air like a bird, or how your voice can be relayed to the other end of the world in milliseconds. There are so many things in our highly technological world today that seem like magic to many. But with a STEM education, your students get to look behind the curtain. And perhaps the best part of being in STEM is that you get to meet other friends who are studying in these fields also. So you get to become part of a community of people who are each studying how one little magical part of the world works. And so you each have your own slightly different superpower. And sometimes the world is faced with really terrible, challenging problems. And the exciting part is you can get together with these people and, with your superpowers combined, create really magical solutions. And just a few weeks ago, the world was faced with one of these terrible challenges. Is this dress gold and white or black and blue? By now, you have probably all seen this dress. It became a viral sensation simply because people could not agree whether it was gold and white or black and blue. It was originally posted on Tumblr, and then it was reblogged on BuzzFeed, and then became this instantaneous viral sensation around the world. I saw a bunch of my friends posting this on Facebook, as you probably did, and I was like, what is this? This is ridiculous. Why are people posting about this stupid, ugly dress? And they just could not agree whether it was white and gold or gold and blue. So I looked at it and I decided, oh, it's obviously white and gold. What are these people talking about? Went back to work, looked back at that picture 15 minutes later, and it transformed to blue and black. And I was like, what is this sorcery? And people all over the world were having this same internal struggle. The struggle was so real that the article on this dress brought more readers to BuzzFeed at one time than ever before in BuzzFeed's history. There were 670,000 people around the world reading this article and looking at this dress at one time. This is what the BuzzFeed tech team saw before the viralness, and then this is when it went viral. I think they were going a little crazy at the time. And then the dress showed up on Ellen, and someone from Texas, actually, got the dress tattooed to his leg. And this was all within the span of a couple of days. Now, part of the reason why this went viral is because humans like a little bit of mystery. They like magic tricks and things that they can't quite understand. But what we like even more is being the one that has the knowledge and the power to know how the magic trick works. Now, it wasn't long after this went viral that my friends in my STEM community were using their superpowers to give us explanations, scientific explanations as to how this worked, why people were seeing different colors when they were looking at the same dress on the same screen. And the explanation lies in how our brains and our eyes work together to understand what colors objects are. Our eyes and brains work together to assign fixed colors to the same object under varying lighting conditions. This is called color constancy. And so when we look at an image, our brains are constantly trying to understand the context of that image. And with other images other than this dress, it's a relatively easy thing to do because we'll see people that we know what their skin color is. We see green grass or trees or a blue sky and white clouds. We know things, we recognize things, and we can determine whether the dress is in a shadow or whether the picture is in a shadow or when it's under bright light. But as you can see with this dress, the context is really confusing. You can't tell whether it's in a shadow or whether it's under bright light. And so, the image on the left, if you are someone who thinks that the dress is in a shadow, your brain is going to interpret that and think that it is white and gold. But if your brain thinks that this dress is washed out and that it's under bright light, you are going to see blue and black. So, there you have it. STEM is a superpower that can solve life's toughest challenges. But STEM goes much farther than being able to determine the color of a dress. For students, it can mean that they can transform the world around them for the better. When I was an undergrad, I was in an organization called Engineers Without Borders. And if you're not familiar with this organization, it's typically an undergrad student-run organization, a nonprofit, that sends students all around the world to solve challenges in the developing world using science and technology. And we sent students to a number of countries, but one of my favorite projects is when we sent a team to Nicaragua. There was a young student class in Nicaragua that were consistently getting sick because of contaminated drinking water. Some of these students each year were even dying. And the water was contaminated because it was in close proximity to human and animal waste. Now, in the States, we don't really have too many issues like this anymore. Water, clean water, is literally a public utility. We all feel like we have the right to clean and free drinking water. And other than the occasional situation where the guy in front of you gets a little too close to the mouthpiece, we don't worry whether or not it's safe to drink. We trust it. But access to clean drinking water is a huge problem for over 750 million people around the world. And because of that, a child dies literally every minute of every day because of a water-related disease. And this was a big problem in the Nicaragua village that we were in. Now, my team put together a very simple and elegant solution to this problem: a water filter made out of sand. It sounds like a pretty rudimentary system, right? But as it turns out, sand has these wonderfully magical properties that can literally remove bacteria from contaminated water. There's this biolayer of microscopic organisms that exist on a layer of wet sand. And these microscopic organisms, they can eat bacteria, many different types of bacteria, including fecal matter bacteria. So all you have to do is dump a layer of contaminated water on a few feet of sand, and because of the biological and mechanical properties, the sand acts as a filter, removing small particles and harmful bacteria, including fecal matter bacteria, from that water, and so out the other end comes clean drinking water. And this very simple solution worked for these Nicaragua students. We always think of STEM as this unreachable body of knowledge that is complex and complicated, the kind of stuff that goes into building an iPhone or explaining the general theory of relativity. But sometimes the most powerful aspects of STEM are the simplest of ideas, like combining dirty water and sand. And when you combine these ideas with a little bit of creativity, you can create wonderfully elegant and sustainable solutions that can solve people's problems, the toughest problems around the world. STEM gives students superpowers to understand the world around them, but it also gives them superpowers to transform that world for the better. Now, lastly, and this one's my personal favorite, STEM can be a poor student's ticket to travel and adventure. When I first came to college, I remember walking down my engineering corridor, and I was probably daydreaming or dreading about how hard the next 4 years were going to be, about how all the all-nighters I was going to have in the library, and how kind of boring college was going to be. And then I saw an image of a student floating in zero gravity like this on the wall. And I thought, what is this? This looks so awesome. And it turns out it is one of the most incredible experiences a human can have on Earth. And it was absolutely free to students if you were in STEM. And so instead of describing this experience, I would like to show you. We did a segment on this for my show on exploration outer space on an episode that was Training to be an Astronaut. That was the title of the episode. And so I'll show you, I'll just let you see it for yourself. The Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Headquarters to NASA's spaceflight program. Home of the legendary Mission Control Center, and the site where I'm about to join some former MIT classmates for a zero-G flight. When you're about to experience weightlessness, just like they do on the International Space Station, it helps to have a former astronaut on board. Katie Coleman, who trained actress Sandra Bullock for her role in the blockbuster film Gravity, is training our team today.
Have you been on the airplane before?
No, none of us have flown before.
Being up in space, it's a little funny because I was used to practicing things on this airplane and doing experiments and making sure they're going to work before you go. And then you get up to space and you keep waiting for 30 seconds to be over and for this to end. I think these students will have the same experience that we do in terms of teamwork, in terms of the physical feeling of free fall, of zero-G.
Finally, our flight is cleared for takeoff. And now, we're just minutes away from our first parabola, which is accompanied by 20 to 30 seconds of weightlessness.
Best advice I can give is take it slowly at first. People try to push off the floor, and what they end up doing is bouncing up off the ceiling.
First parabola is such an incredible rush because it doesn't just start weightless. First, the plane tilts up and you feel like you're extremely heavy on the floor. Everything gets pressed to the floor, and during that time, my heart started pumping.
But while I was having fun floating,
Eating like an astronaut.
snacking, and even juggling,
You can actually do it on the moon.
the rest of the passengers on board are experimenting in health and fitness, and even nutrition. Each parabola means 30 key seconds of experiment time. So my team from MIT is on the clock.
The experiment is a deployable antenna that we plan to use on board a satellite that we're building at MIT called TIRSAT.
The first challenge, can a 9-inch antenna deployed to 9 feet in weightless conditions?
still able to see a successful deployment, which was fantastic. We were able to watch the antenna actually spring to life inside its shield, and it was something that was really incredible to watch.
The first part of the experiment is a success. Now, can the satellite itself float in space-like conditions?
It's okay.
Our experiment did not go perfectly, as you know, a lot of experiments don't, but I think we've still got a lot of good data.
All right, coming out.
Before we land, I have a few things left on my zero-G bucket list. A spacewalk, some acrobatics, and of course, the obligatory selfie. All a part of an unforgettable experience on the Weightless Wonder.
These younger people need to be ready for the future because they are the ones with the good questions, and they are the ones that are going to be passionate about pursuing the answers.
So, as you can see, it's a pretty amazing experience for anyone, but especially for a college student who is like 19 or 20 years old. And to have that experience for free is something that's unique to STEM. And if you're wondering, yes, it is indeed called the Vomit Comet for a reason. When I did this in undergrad, you saw that they tell you to take the first few parabolas slowly because your body isn't used to this new weightless condition. Your body is going to be very confused. And so if you're doing flips and your head is on the floor and your feet are on the ceiling, your brain is going to be very confused because you're not falling toward the floor and you're not falling toward the ceiling, you're not falling anywhere. And so your brain is thinking, what types of drugs is this girl on? And so its natural reaction is to, in fact, throw up, which I did. And they give you these little baggies that you put in your flight suit, and they're easily accessible. So when that happens, you can quickly pull it out and do your business in the bag and then tie it really quickly, because if you don't do it quickly, what happens to throw up and weightlessness, that quickly becomes friends with all the other passengers on the airplane, which means you quickly lose all your friends on that airplane. But this was just the beginning of my adventures in STEM. I think the most unique aspect of STEM majors that I wish more students knew about is that there is so much money for students who are in STEM majors. Why get a part-time job at a Starbucks if you can get paid to do research on something that's relevant to your major, that you're interested in, that you're passionate about, and you're building your resume at the exact same time? And the internships are even better. They will send you all around the country and they will pay for it. I have gone to NASA centers in California, NASA centers in Ohio, I've worked in DC, and they didn't just pay for your travel expenses, you came home with money, which helped pay for college. And I wasn't just getting coffee, or I wasn't getting coffee, and I wasn't getting dry cleaning for my boss. I was actually trying to figure out whether or not there was water on Mars. Now we know that there is. I was growing nanoparticles in a research lab, and I was analyzing a new type of rocket engine for NASA. And these were just the domestic opportunities. I was sent to China through a National Science Foundation internship, and I worked there for 3 months and had a lot of adventures while I was there. And when I was in grad school, I gave a research presentation in Naples, Italy. And while I was there, I got to meet the one and only Bill Nye and, of course, travel through Italy. So why is this important to your students, other than the obvious reasons, because it's a lot of fun? But not all students can afford to pay for college. And so these paid research assistantships and these teaching assistantships and these internships, they help these students pay for college. And these opportunities that I had, they weren't just for the top students. Every single engineering student that I knew at my state school in undergrad had opportunities like this. Everybody had an internship every single summer, and they all made $5,000 and $10,000, and some people even over $20,000 in one summer. It's just part of the job description when you sign up to be a student in STEM. But it's not just the money. Traveling around the country and around the world is an asset all in itself. And traveling while you're young is incredibly important because these are the experiences that will make your students more independent and confident in their abilities. Traveling exposes you to different mindsets and beliefs and cultures. Traveling will give your students a healthy sense of wonder about the world, and that will fuel their desire to learn about it further. STEM can be your student's free ticket to this type of travel and adventure. Now, STEM is more than just a body of knowledge. It pushes you outside of your comfort zone. The best accomplishments in life start with a little discomfort. STEM can give your students superpowers to understand the world around them and let them change that world for the better. And STEM can be a free ticket to travel and adventure, a poor college student's dream. Now, I hesitantly joined STEM, but for these 3 reasons, I enthusiastically stayed. I hope that we can all work together to bring these messages to students so that they may not just hesitantly join STEM as I did, but enthusiastically join STEM, excited for college and for their future. Thank you.